There's a popular Korean TV show called Hanguke Chome Ichi, which translates to "This is your first time to Korea." And the premise of the show is that it takes a foreigner who lives in Korea and can speak Korean well, and he or she invites friends or family to come into Korea for a couple of days. This is a great idea because it gives foreigners a chance to see what they could do in Korea, what they can eat, what activities are available to them if they tour the country. And it also allows Koreans to see what foreigners are like in their country for the first time. I was surprised when I watched this past weekend and I saw that South Africans came to Korea. There's a guy living in Seoul, he can speak Korean kind of well, and he invited 3 friends to come to Korea. 2 white guys and a black guy. It was really great seeing them here because I could hear people with a similar accent that I'm used to. The guys dressed the same. And because my girlfriend actually tells me a lot, I need to up my style game. I need to dress better, but I feel comfortable this way. The 3 of them come to Korea. They are very social. They talk to people on the street as South Africans are. I think in general South Africans are very social people. They meet up with their friend at night in Seoul, and he wants to take them to go and eat some dak galbi. To get to the restaurant, they have to walk down this dark alley. It's scary, and they stop. They don't want to go down that alley. The 3 guys just stop and say, "Listen, this looks dangerous. Someone might jump us. Somebody would try and mug us. We don't want to go down this road." You could clearly see the difference between the 2 countries, South Africa and South Korea, where 3 grown men are afraid to walk down a dark alley because it's late at night and it might be dangerous. Last year I went back to South Africa for a month on vacation, and it's different. My parents wouldn't like me walking around, just walking to the shop. Or if you go out late at night, you always have to have a friend. You always have to be aware where your wallet is, where your cell phone is. If you leave anything behind and you go someplace, you come back, it's gone. There's also another TV show in Russia where 2 girls would travel to a country. They would flip a coin. One girl would take the rich route and one would take the poor route, and they would have to get by with less money. Obviously, they didn't do enough research about the country, and the one girl ended up in downtown Johannesburg, the CBD. And here's this pretty Russian girl walking around with only a cameraman, walking in broad daylight. And suddenly she gets harassed on camera. People started following her, tugging at her, asking her for money. You know, you could feel there was a tension in the air until someone stopped and said, "Hey, what are you doing here? Get in the car," and drove her away. So I had to explain to my Russian friend, not all South Africa is like this. She went to a bad area. But why should I have to do something like that? Why is the world as it is? It shouldn't be like that. And hopefully in the future it can change. But right now, that is not the reality of living in South Africa. You can't move around the country without a car. Not just because it's a big country and you have to drive everywhere. But in the past, when I was younger, I would ride everywhere with my bike. I would go jogging. But now, you still have to be vigilant, and you can only do it in certain areas. And if you compare that to Korea, if you come to Korea, you're safe. No one's going to try and steal anything from you. No one's going to try and rob you. The worst case scenario is if you go to a bar and somebody might take your coat, which has happened, or if you lose your money and if you lose your wallet and there's money inside, maybe that'll happen. But even then, if I've lost my phone or my wallet or something, I've always gotten it back. Except one time when I lost my wallet and there was a lot of money in it, so that doesn't really count. But otherwise, you would leave your things on a table in a coffee shop, you would walk away, come back, and everything will be there. It also comes down to the Korean people, having a sense of honor, and also that the country is in a good place. But, I think even if you went back 40 or 50 years, when Korea was a poor country, you wouldn't have, I don't believe you would have crimes like that, because, you know, it's not the honorable thing to do. And if you did commit a crime or did something bad, it reflected on your family. Now, there are other types of crimes. I don't want to go into the other blue-collar crimes there are, or some of the horrible things that do happen, especially in clubs and things like that. But I'm just talking general safety outside in public. If you come to Korea, you will be safe. Korean people have helped me so many times. If I've lost something, if I went somewhere, in most cases, they've been so helpful to get it back to me. That being said, I want to say something about being overprotected, because in Korea that does happen. They are so focused on safety that they could go overboard. A good example of this is if you go to a water park. You can't go onto the rides if you're not wearing a life jacket. And if you go to Haeundae, if you go to Busan and you go to the beaches during summer, they've got lifeguards posted a couple of meters in, and you try and swim in and they stop, you blow their whistle. No, it's unsafe, it's dangerous. And that's absurd. By being overprotective, they are protecting their kids too much, and they're not learning how to swim or how to survive. In cases like that, I would actually, I wouldn't be as strict on safety. I would actually say, listen, let the kids go and swim. You know, if it's the parents' responsibility to take them to swimming classes, to instruct them how to survive. Because, you know, they're fine in Korea, but once they go to the outside world, how will they cope? Even fights, you know. If you go out at night and you go and socialize, going to clubs and bars and drinking outside is a huge part of Korean culture. I mean, you can drink outside, you can drink beer outside, you can drink soju outside. This is actually in the video. I was disappointed because one of the guys visiting on the show, 한국에 처음에 있지, so they heard from their friend that you could drink outside, and they were just obsessed with getting a beer and drinking it in public, because obviously in South Africa you can only drink it in certain areas if you're at the bar, but you can't have an open container outside. And in Korea, yeah, it's fine. I mean, you could sit somewhere, you can drink, but the idea isn't just to get away with it or to do something and drink in public. It's a way more relaxed culture when it comes to drinking outside, but that shouldn't be your focus. Your focus shouldn't be, hey, let's drink outside. So you often get this, you get foreigners that come to Korea on the subway, they pull out beer or soju and they drink, or they just want to show, hey, listen, we can drink outside. That isn't the main idea. I think be okay with drinking alcohol, and it's not some taboo thing. But don't do it just because it's interesting. Don't just do it for the heck of it. Okay, so drinking culture in Korea. Obviously, once people start drinking, sometimes emotion can rise and you'll find some fights. In foreign countries, you know, if there's a fight, you know, the two guys will get close to each other, stare each other down, and then one would sneak a punch, or they would grab each other, headbutt, you know, something very violent would go down. In Korea, what generally tends to happen is two guys would get close to each other and it would turn into a shouting match. You'd just see them shouting at each other and trying to stand up and, you know, make themselves big. But it's just basically a shouting battle, and the two friends, their friends would take them away, pull them apart. So, because, you know, if there is a fight in Korea, you know, you could easily get sued. And I think they think about that. If you punch someone and they bleed, you could sue them for a couple of $1,000s. Where I have seen fights is with girls. Girls get in it. They grab each other, they grab each other's hair, they scratch. I've had to separate some Korean girls from each other once or twice. But yeah, but it doesn't happen that often. I mean, if you go to a bar in another country, you know, even as a guy, you kind of look around, because then late at night there might be someone who gets aggressive or wants to fight. What's interesting though is that you know, if there are fights in Korea between Korean guys, most Koreans learn Taekwondo, and you need a lot of space to maneuver in Taekwondo, to kick and to punch. But bar fights are just brawls, you know, it's close combat. You grab people, pull them down, punch. So they don't really do that. Although there are some, I think recently MMA is getting popular in Korea, and Koreans love technical skills. I see a lot of kids getting into jiu-jitsu. I see also bodybuilding. I see some Koreans also getting bigger, you know, so that might change in the future. So when you're coming to Korea, you're going to be safe. Your personal belongings will not disappear, and you don't have to worry as much about your personal safety. Don't drink alcohol outside just because it's something new for you to do. You know, don't worry about it, have fun, you know. If you're going on a picnic, take a beer along. Don't, just because it's something new, drink in the subway or drink while walking around because, hey, I can do this now. There aren't many fights. You don't have to worry about fights. If there's a fight, just walk away, because if you get involved, you can get sued, you can lose a lot of money. And also, in most cases, it's just gonna turn into a shouting match anyway. In the future, I'll make a video about girls talking about their experiences and how they can also be safe, because I think it is a very important issue. I've only got one perspective as a guy in Korea, so I'm going to do a few interviews perhaps with some friends, and then hear their perspectives, some stories they can tell you. Okay everyone, if you want to hear more stories like that, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. What would you like to learn more about in South Korea?